Okay, so hello everyone and hello teachers. My name is Kamsamongsa and I'm from Group 6. Today I will be your first presenter to talk about Reading 11, and the topic is about a broader and bolder approach that uses educations to break the cycle of poverty. So without further ado, let us move on to our content. So I'll be discussing the two questions. So the first one, why is it not enough to say that all children can learn? And the second one is what are the three factors that affect the learning of children in poverty? And the last question will be covering by the second presenter, which is the one. So let us move on to the first point. So most schools policy maker, they tend to base their plan on assumptions like children can learn at the same level regardless of the challenges that they face. But if we look at reality, unlike middle class children, those who are born in poverty face issues of poor health, safety, and lack of parental support, which makes learning, almost an impossible task for them. And one of those who argue is Mr. Pedro, and he described a reform plan that called a broader and bolder approach, which is to direct it at some of the issue of concern for children growing up in poverty. And the plan is also has a principle behind it, which is the community, and school must work together in order to meet the student needs. So let us move on to the first question. So why is it not enough to say that all children can learn? Well, I think you all can understand a little bit about this. So I'm just gonna go, walk you through a little detail about it. So children who are live in, poor communities, they face serious obstacles that adversely affect their development and uh, academic outcomes as suggested by research. And it was found that poverty is one of the main reasons that causes such challenges for the children. Although, is it really the case that poverty is responsible, or should we say the sole culprit for making children fail in academic development and achievement? Well, there are other claims such as maybe the teachers are ineffective. So poor children, they may need some sort of special need or special attention from the teachers, right? So if the teachers fail to do so, it may worsen the conditions that the children are encountering. So like we can put the blame on the school then, because the school are uh, overseeing the staff, which is the teachers. So that may not be the case as well, because as written in the Washington Post, it was stated that educators may feel comfortable knowing that the problems related to poverty should be, untangled first before allowing the children to learn at school. So the school, they say something like, maybe we should fix the problems outside the school first before allowing the children to come to school. So we are not to blame. Don't put the blame on us, something like that. But even though the school is not the one to blame, however, as stated in the same article, plenty of evidence demonstrate that every school, including teachers, can make a difference for those poor children despite those challenges. So again, let's talk about the final answers. So as far as we have discussed, it is not enough to say that, because school policy maker, they ignore the reality, and to make such assumptions like that is clearly at fault, and they doing nothing to address or try to resolve the outside of school challenges that the children are facing. And that fact is neither fair nor a sound basis for developing the public policy. So I guess we're done with the first question. Let us move on to the second one. So what are the three factors that affect learning, of children in poverty? So we have external support, and then we have environmental obstacles, and the last one is negative social capital. Okay, for the first factor, we have external support, and that is the support from parents and the teachers, or we can say the school. So for middle class children, they receive all the advantage and all of those support more than those who are from the poor families, and that is understandable. But it was found that parents and teacher support actually improves the success rate of student achievement and as well as the school itself. So from that we can see who has the advantage. And in inner cities, I mean community, yeah, inner city community, which is the center, somewhere around the center, there are problems such as racial and class differences, and that leads to that makes the social closures which the James Coleman described as a mutually reinforcing partnership between parents and schools in healthy schools and communities. So it would make the social closures weak or even non-existent, and that leads to trust issue. So when that happens, the school is likely to experience less involvement from the parents because the parents don't trust the school with the kids, and the school also experience antagonisms and hostility with the parents because there are situations where the school are trying their best, but the parents are not helping. So schools, the school are a little bit disappointed, and they supposed to work together, but they do not. So that was the first factor. The second one is the environmental obstacles, which are the adverse conditions that influence students' health, safety, and well-being, which unreliably influence learning. So even though you can study hard, but with the poor environments that you're from, not just poor environment, like the bad conditions that you're living in, it is hard for you to achieve all the success that you want. So places where poverty is concentrated tend to have a high rate of health issues, violence, stress, and both negative psychological and emotional being. And this happens due to lack of services as well as a concentration effect. So this term was developed by Mr. William Julius Wilson, and I did a little research. It's a little bit, a bit technical. It refers to community level effects of economic restructurings in the U.S. Well, let's not get hung up on that. We can moving on to, how these issue affects can have effects. So issues from poverty in cities and town, they influence academics and developmental outcomes of poor students in a very bad way, and that leads to the school to fail to respond to the student non-academic needs because it was so much for them to handle, but all they can do is to provide the student with the academic needs that can be found inside school. So we also have evidence that can show the lack of environmental, not lack, but how environmental obstacles affect student learnings. So several studies on federally funded Head Start program shown that the benefits of early educations are undermined when children don't receive enough ongoing support both in and outside school. And another case, we have a study on long-term effects of infants exposed to substance abuse, which can be drug or something like that, found that those children are likely to experience school failure just like those who are non-affected and from the same neighborhood. So even though the children that are not being exposed are still, uh, at disadvantage when it comes to learning. So now we're done with the second factor. Moving on to the last factor, which is negative social capitals. That is the adverse conditions undermine the ability of parents and school to influence the character of school and ensure that they serve their interests. So adverse environmental conditions that includes violence and substance abuse, they tend to negatively influence the ability of parents and school to develop social capital. So uh, the parents in the school, they are experiencing the inability to draw local resource, which negatively affects the student learning and their health development. So the schools that are in middle class community, they can make use of the community resources, and the community itself can gain benefit from school. And in fact, just like mentioned in the book, the real estate agents often use viability and the attractiveness of local school as a selling point to attract home buyers. On the other hand, we have school in highly poverty communities. So the school in those places often functions in isolation from the community. And another downside is that the community are considered hostile to them because maybe they have relationships problems, or the community itself is dangerous. There are many crimes and all sorts of that. So when that happens, it causes a major problems to the local residents. Moreover, it was found that public school of poor urban area become negative assets that undermine the well-being of the community because of the overwhelming student needs. So even though it is the public school, it still cannot handle the high demand of outside school non-academic needs of the students. Well, we may seem that poverty is some sort of like a big obstacle, but none of this means that poverty is predestined nor too difficult to overcome. Okay? And mostly, if the obstacles in poor communities are ignored, efforts to help students learn and school improve are less effective. So we all should need to turn our attentions to those problems before we start pointing finger. And I am done with my part. Thank you for listening. And now I would like to give the responsibility to the second speaker. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. So, the next question is: how does the broader, bolder approach propose to provide educational opportunity for the children in poverty? Now, to answer this question, we need to understand what is the broader and bolder approach, or in short, BBA, and how does it work. To help you understand, let's take a look at BBA at Newark, New Jersey. So Newark is a city at New Jersey, United States. So BBA is a plan to reform schools through the usage of school-based intervention that are sensitive to the current issues and challenges. By increasing civic engagement and social services among students, BBA works with partners to ensure that poverty will not stop schools from being reformed. So generally, we can see that BBA attempts to mitigate the effects of poverty. So the keyword here is mitigate. BBA does not completely solve or eradicate the issues of poverty and its effect, but rather try to minimize or at least reduce the effects of poverty have on education. Now, first, BBA is working to expand learning opportunity for students through quality early childhood education and by extending the traditional school days. BBA is based on researches that suggest a more comprehensive approach to increase academic outcomes for poor students and to improve their schools. And those researches have shown that the extension of school times before and after traditional school days, in addition to providing social support, enables schools to meet the students' needs that usually undermines their learning and childhood development. Now, secondly, the BBA is also working to enrich the curriculum through enhanced literacy development in all content areas and put a greater emphasis on project-based learning. So BBA enables students to learn and develop skills through engaging in authentic and complex issues that are happening in the society. So thirdly, BBA is working to build critical partnership that will strengthen the capacity of schools to respond to student needs and also enables community interest to come together so parents and their allies can hold schools and their leader accountable for academic outcome. So one example is how service organizations have partners with schools in high poverty urban areas to address the social needs by providing them with access to mental health and other social support at school. When these social services are provided, academic and developmental outcome can also be improved in tandem. Right? So let's move on to the next point, which is school reform and community reform. So judging, by the title itself, it's very self-explanatory. When school is developed, the community itself also experiences the flourishment from the school being reformed, and thus community itself is also developed. Okay, so in our cases that we take a look at the city of Newark, they have embraced BBA because they have realized the importance of human capital if they ever want to have a sustainable economic and social renaissance. And the BBA here aims to combine a research-based education strategy with school-based social services and after-school programs and also intervention. They do so to increase the capability of schools to respond to issues to the social and the environment, assuming that these will meet the student needs. Now, the theory of BBA is that education is both the cause and solution to social issues. When there's insufficient education, there will be in the society, there will be a lot more crime, there will be a lot more people who is uninformed about the environmental problems, who is uninformed about marginalization or discrimination. However, when sufficient education is provided, it can serve as a tool to eradicate those mentioned social issues by giving students enough experience, enough knowledge, and giving them time to critically think about those social issues. So when they go and face and challenge those issues outside of school, they are equipped and well prepared. Okay? BBA seeks to transform school by creating a series of strategic partnerships between schools, businesses, universities, hospitals, local government, and neighborhood-based service organization. By having all those mentioned external support, it will be very cost effective because the school will have a lot of fun to help transform. Additionally, schools will hold greater accountability, which lead to higher education students' achievement. Sorry for the construction sound, okay? But again, by having those external support, not only is it cost effective, but also schools will hold greater accountability, which leads to higher students' achievement. Right? So BA here aims to mitigate the detrimental effects of the environment factors such as social, economic, and political factors that may lead to issues such as social isolation or economic marginalization, by developing the capacity of schools to respond to student needs and drawing support and resources from local institutions. Alright, so BBA transform how urban public schools serve low-income children of colors and their families. So in schools, usually in schools that there are many financially struggling students, those schools tend to normalize behavior. By normalizing, the behavior of failing, students will be influenced and change which seem impossible. Consequently, schools and society can never be developed as long as the mindset persists. As evidence in UR, this mindset led to many absenteeism and tardiness from staff and student alike. BBA will attempt to counter this by providing parents and community organization with support to schools and hold them accountable. Okay, so in brief, there's have been many initiatives such as the No Child Left Behind. However, these initiatives can be very ineffective because they fail to target the problem at its roots. So, as long as social issues such as poverty, and as long as it is allowed to interfere with students' education, it will never ever solve the issues. Will never ever solve those issues. No, those issues will never be solved. And of course, even though every children are provided with education, those education will still not be efficient, as students will still live in poverty, and they will still experience homelessness, unemployment, lack of education, lack of public health. All right, so that's the end of our presentation. So thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, please reach out to us, and or maybe comment anywhere if we decided to post anywhere. And thank you again for paying attention. Hopefully it will help you in one way or another. See you again next time.